got Senne Lammens in, and there was talk of Emiliano Martínez coming in. Why do you think they've gone for Senne Lammens and not Martinez?
I mean, well, there has been talk all day that Martinez ultimately fell down, possibly because they couldn't get a permanent move for Sancho. I know Sancho's gone to Villa on loan. I'm not sure if that's absolutely true, but it has been the talk all day. And it is a slightly surprising one that maybe it's actually a decision maybe that articulates this kind of delicate point that Manchester United are at, because obviously they've staked a lot on Ruben Amorim, but they also don't want to make the mistake, I suppose, of making every single signing anchored to an individual manager, so that if there is a change, I'm not sure there's going to be, then suddenly they have to change again, because that's been one of the problems at Manchester United. Now, Lammens, he's seen as someone who can be a sensational goalkeeper in the future. And I think from what I was told yesterday, the thinking was that, you know, they could miss out on him and then he could go on and be brilliant elsewhere, and then they'd have felt that they could have done the deal for much cheaper. So that's one of the rationale. But I suppose it's just a strange one because, look, a goalkeeper is already an isolated position. We've talked about Old Trafford and Donnarumma already. At Manchester United, it feels all the more isolated right now, given Manchester United is a punishing environment for a young player without experience at the moment, because the glare is so strong. It's not just the weight of the United shirt, it's the weight of United disarray. So suddenly, if a young player makes one error, and that, especially in goals, I don't want to be talking him down already, it's just more, I suppose, what he's walking into, then that can have an effect. But who knows, we might be talking about a sensation here who immediately can stand up, who has actually that personality. Because I suppose that's maybe where there was some surprise they didn't go for Martinez, because he's got all sorts of personality, and that's what United have needed, really.
Did it surprise you, Jonathan? I mean, Martinez might have seen a very good fit there, somebody that could marshal the back.
Yeah, and obviously he's a personality. I think if you're looking at the modern United and the regime, looking at in terms of resale value, looking in terms of younger players who essentially you can move on if they don't work out. And you know, the one thing we know about United is that it's probably not going to work out. I'm not going to pretend that I've seen like 90 minutes of every game he's played. But you know, they say he's like decent command of his area. He's good range of passing, and the track record of goalkeepers coming from the Belgian Pro League to the Premier League is actually not bad. You know, you think of Courtois and Mignolet, but also Matt Sells and Bart Verbruggen at Brighton. So what we don't know, obviously, is, like Miguel says, how he will handle the pressure, the scrutiny. Every single mistake will be scrutinised in minute detail, and also like the chaos of the Premier League penalty area. The goal mouth is refereed much differently in the Premier League to how it is in a lot of other countries, and it's that adaptation which I think is a big tell for how a keeper's going to fare.
Yeah, and is it also a bit of a story, the fact that they potentially, Manchester United, and I don't know for sure, but you'd think that they might have been in for the likes of Donnarumma, and perhaps Manchester United are not the pulling power they perhaps once were?
No, it's been an interesting summer, hasn't it? Because on the one hand, they were still able to attract Šeško ahead of, you know, other big clubs, and Bruno turned down Spurs to go to Old Trafford, you know, and so that those sort of things played into it. Cunha, I'm sure, could have had his pick of other clubs, but indeed, you know, set it out very early on, I want Old Trafford. And so basically, I do still think United have a pulling power. I do think part of the issue there for Donnarumma is I do think he wanted a big payday. I think he's probably got that, you know, a bigger payday at City. And City obviously offer him Champions League football, which he's obviously become very accustomed to and very successful at. Yeah. So, you know, you've got those that I do think that, I think opposing teams will now feast upon a young goalkeeping signing and say, OK, let's see what you're about. Because basically it's almost become such a problem position. And this is a massive test for a newcomer. And I do think when you talk about personalities, I think Martinez would have been up for the challenge and would have loved that and would have been good at it. And I think now they are taking a bit of another gamble on a sort of somewhat unproven younger goalkeeper. They've got a few of those on the books already. I mean, Altai's had a couple of really bad games, and they're stacking up these goalkeepers that are not working. And here's another one that's kind of, you know, straight into the line of fire.
It is interesting where they are. So basically, for the two most isolated positions on the pitch, where either you can save your team or potentially make big errors, or offer match winners or miss big chances. They've got two players that have to adapt to the Premier League. One, the new goalkeeper, and Šeško, obviously. And look, I'm not saying that's necessarily going to be bad in the long run, but it's for a team that are where they are, which is where they start to need assurance, there's like an element of uncertainty about both.
It's interesting. I just want to, because I've got all three of you here from the media and myself as well, included in that. But the fact that they say that they do Manchester United come under more scrutiny than any other team. Mboma was talking about it at the weekend. Harry Maguire's spoken about that. Is that something you'd agree with?
Oh, absolutely. And also, I mean, like this is always the case historically, going back to when Matt Busby made them a great kind of international club. But now, I mean, we're in an era, obviously, where it's gone to a whole other dimension, given, like, we're talking about, what, 12 super clubs. They're massively popular around the globe, despite the last decade. And like, the whole kind of social media brings a total other element to it. And yeah, that does increase the scrutiny, especially because, I mean, players, before, they could probably shut out this stuff easier. But now, just to go online, they can see all sorts of noise about themselves.
Yeah.
100% it does. I mean, they wouldn't have it any other way, by the way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they are the self-proclaimed biggest club in the world. I mean, basically, that's how they want to be perceived. The spotlight is on them. I mean, I was fascinated by that game against Burnley on Saturday. What would happen? And basically, you know, we all watched, didn't we, sort of kind of in a ghoulish fashion about what would happen at Grimsby. You're watching that game and thinking, oh, couldn't possibly, could they? And it's just amazing, this kind of Man United soap opera. But make no mistake about it, when they're good, they're absolutely brilliant. I mean, they're dominated for 20 years under Fergie, and we're untouchable. So, you know, that's the standard that they set themselves, and at the moment they're miles off it, and that's the problem that United have. But yeah, they are absolutely under the media spotlight, and they do get more attention, and they kind of, probably crave it, even though they'd never admit it and would sort of kind of deny it.
Because as well as a football club, they are an entertainment brand, they're an advertising space, and you know, they pride themselves on their social media numbers and their reach and their clout. And what the football team needs is a little bit of time away from the spotlight to reflect and just get their heads down, and Manchester United PLC cannot allow that, because their brand is essentially what sustains them.
A 5-year contract with big wages. This is what it would cost you, and maybe United were not ready to spend that on a goalkeeper. What's more interesting, maybe, is the Dibu Martinez situation with United, because clearly they were very keen on him. The leadership, the personality, the experience, a winning goalkeeper, World Cup winner, Copa America winner, all of that. That against a young, up-and-coming, very talented, but still young and inexperienced, with 1 year of professional football behind him in Senne Lammens from Royal Antwerp, with a lot of people watching us would have never heard of that club. And then between the two, they go for the younger options. Cheaper options, probably. And I think one of the issues today was that Dibu Martinez demands were not really of agreement with United, very different to Lammens, who is not going to cost them much in wages at all, for example. But in terms of profile, not even just pure goalkeeping qualities that Xhaka can talk about, but just for the leadership that this United team, that Lammens doesn't really have because he's been there 2 minutes as a pro, compared to Dibu Martinez, I find this choice really surprising.
Yeah, isn't it? It's like,
well, show me a recent. On the face of it, they look as if they've made a couple of better signings. But over the last 3 or 4 years, we could pick out a dozen signings. You go, huh? That's a scratcher. What's that one about? And you know, they're in this. They keep talking about projects and this, that, and the next thing. And Jules is right. They have built their success over the years. They've always had an experience, whether it was Schmeichel or Barthez or even Mark Bosnich for a period. They've always had, you know, keepers that were super confident and would sort of bully a back four. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'll be honest, I have no idea what this young man's like. I've not got a Scooby like most people, so I don't know. Clearly they must have done their homework, but then we could say that about 15 of their signings in the last 4 or 5 years. Well, they must have done their homework, and they're selling Rasmus Højlund for half the price. They're getting rid of Anthony for a pittance compared to what they paid. So I can't tell you about the recruitment strategy.
Manchester United's choice of Senne Lammens over Emiliano Martínez came down to age, cost, and long-term planning. At just 23, Lammens represents a goalkeeper for the future, fitting the club's vision under INEOS and Ruben Amorim of rebuilding with younger talent. His transfer from Antwerp cost around 21 million euros, a far more affordable deal compared to the £35 million fee and £200,000 weekly wages Martinez demanded. United also faced complications in negotiations for Martinez, including a proposed swap involving Jadon Sancho that collapsed. While Martinez is a proven World Cup winner, at 33 he offered only a short-term solution. Lammens, by contrast, provides both immediate cover and potential to grow into the number 1 role, making him the smarter, sustainable choice.